Call meeting to order. Have an invocation?
Sure. Father God in heaven, we just thank you for these men and women who are here for our city. And we pray that you guide them and instruct them and bless them. I pray that you be with us as we go through this pandemic and you protect our town and our city and our state. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any changes to the agenda? No changes. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
A motion from Christie,
Second.
second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comments. This is the time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. We request that you state your name and address, speak respectfully, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Are there any public comments? No public comments. Okay. Public hearing for TIF redevelopment project plans. The public hearing is now open.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'll take a couple minutes to start off the hearing, just kind of explaining what we're doing with the project, and then if anybody in the audience wants to speak, they can. I believe you've got a letter to read as well. We've talked about a couple of projects for the last several months to be able to use the rest of the TIF funding up before the TIF district expires at the end of August. And those two projects are the Downtown Alley and Sewer project and the 6th Street parking lot project. We have a lot of information in your packet already about the distribution of funds and how those TIF funds will be used toward these project costs. And specifically, the Downtown Alley project is primarily funded by a CDBG grant and then partially funded through supplements from the City CIP fund, the City Water Fund, and 10% of those project funds would be coming from the TIF fund, or $100,000. Then for the 6th Street parking lot project, the funding distribution would be that $250,000 of the remaining TIF funds would go toward the 6th Street parking lot project, which should cover most of it, and any remainder, any overage would come from the city CIP fund. And just to remind the audience that the TIF district does expire at the end of August, and passage of the ordinance tonight approves the project redevelopment plans and allows us to proceed with the expenses of the funds towards some of those project costs. The Downtown Alley project is already under design. We expect it to be bid this winter and construction to begin next spring. The 6th Street parking lot project is very preliminary at this point. No official design has begun and won't begin until the passage of the ordinance or the approval of the project redevelopment plan. As a reminder, for the use of the TIF funds, statutorily projects completed using the TIF funds must serve a public purpose to address blight and support redevelopment, to promote and stimulate and to develop the general and economic welfare of our community, which most of these projects do. TIF funds can be used to pay for the construction of public infrastructure and other development costs in the redevelopment district, to retire bonds issued by the city, or to fund development projects within the district. Both of the projects are located within the district. Both of the projects are considered infrastructure, and both support economic development in that they support the businesses and public purpose within that area. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time, and then would allow others to have an opportunity to comment as well.
Are there any public comments?
Well, as the guy who kind of dictates what happens on 6th and Cedar for fellowship, we're excited about that. It'll help not only us, but the Baptist church as well, and the Brown Green. And so it also helps during, yesterday we had a little congestion with the voting. And so it'll help with that as well. So I just want you to know that we're excited about that. Our church is excited about that.
Good. Good. So where are we at on the acquisition?
I spoke with the owner of the greenhouse 2 weeks ago, and we're getting a little bit closer. So just to share the way the language of the deed, the way that it's written, we have to jump through a couple of legal hoops in order to officially negotiate solely with Albert. We've got some other heirs that have some interest, and so we need to work through that. Once we get that settled, which we're very close, he has a document ready to sign. He was making one last push to find some of those other heirs. And then once he's able to sign that, then we can begin official negotiations, and we'll go back into, probably likely into the executive session to discuss the details of that. Then we'll come back out in public session to finalize that acquisition of property, and then we would begin work toward demolition.
So that would be eligible even though it would be taking place after the.
Yes, because your action tonight by approving the ordinance, you approve the project redevelopment plan. So
Gotcha.
you earmark those funds for this project as specified by statute. So even though the acquisition and the demolition would occur after the expiration of the TIF, because we earmarked those funds before the expiration, you can still use those funds for that project.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions?
Do you want the letter read from?
Yeah.
Are you going to do it or do you want me to do it? The city received a letter from Shakubui Funeral Home. Dear Concordia City Commissioners and Concordia City Manager, my name is Joshua Meyer and I am Vice President of Tibbetts Brothers Incorporated and Manager and Operator of Shakubui Funeral Home located at 325 West 6th Street, Concordia, Kansas. I'm writing in support of the proposed TIF redevelopment project for the 6th Street parking lot. Our group wholeheartedly supports the use of TIF funds to complete the proposed project. We believe this will help enhance our location and other businesses within our area and our local downtown businesses as well. We also believe that this project will positively impact our local downtown economy. Additionally, this project will clean up blight in our downtown area and establish a parking area that is beneficial to a multitude of businesses, groups, churches, and the Concordia community. Thank you to our city manager and elected city commissioners for your efforts, vision, and planning towards this project. We appreciate the strategic plan and feel it is beneficial to our community. Thank you for your time regarding this issue. Sincerely, Joshua Meyer.
Thanks, Christy. No further comments. The public hearing is now closed. Thank you. Ordinance 2020-3162, TIF redevelopment plan alley sewer project.
I would move to approve ordinance 2020-3162.
Another motion from Chuck,
Second.
second from Christy. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Ordinance 2020-3163, TIF redevelopment plan, 6th Street parking lot.
I would move to approve ordinance 2020-3163.
Have a motion from Chuck,
Second.
second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same
Sorry.
sign. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public hearing and approval of 2021 budget. The public hearing is now open.
Let's go over a few things on the budget. Nothing really changed from the last time. There was no mill levy increase. We increased transfers to equipment reserve by $33,000, going towards the purchase of the fire truck in the future. We increased our transfers to capital improvement projects fund by $83,000 from last year to current year. Our allocation to outside entities remains the same at $38,200. We have kept the longevity pay increases, which is $3,413. We have a COLA in there of 1.8%, which is $50,740. And the health insurance, so the last time you saw it, I had a line in there for $26,000. Now I've just moved that to transfer it to equipment reserve, and as long as, which we're discussing later, as long as we decide that, then that's fine. If we decide that we didn't want to go with the change in the health insurance plan, then I would just not transfer that money and put that towards that.
Okay.
So nothing would need to be changed. Operating expenses by department were held constant or went up to 3%, and the guaranteed reserve budget line item was basically the same as the current year, and we should have at least $800,000 in reserve at the end of next year. questions on that?
Are there any public comments on the budget? No public comments. The public hearing is now closed. Thank you, Amber.
I move to accept the 2020 budget as presented.
2021.
Well, it says
I know.
2021 here. Thank you. I amend my
Memo,
motion
memo.
to 2021.
Motion from Christie, a second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Concordia revolving loan fund conversion and grant. Are you going?
I'm really trying not to become a regular. But as everybody knows, every day is constant change. That's one thing that we can be assured of. And so I am coming here this evening to explain the situation with our community development block grant funding for the Concordia revolving loan in conjunction with the community development block grant funding that the state has called CB1 dollars. There are two different pools of dollars available to help businesses through this pandemic. So when we started through this pandemic, I came to you and we asked that we loosen the restrictions on the revolving loan fund so that we could potentially get dollars out to businesses a lot easier and in a quicker manner. We were able to loosen the restrictions for the Department of Commerce, and we did that. We took the interest rate to 0%. We deferred the payments for 6 months. We allowed them to apply for up to $25,000. And we had 9 businesses that we were able to help. 9 businesses that were proactive, coming to us wanting to save their business. In May, we found out that the Department of Commerce was going to, again, open community development block grant funds called CB1 funds that were now grant dollars that were available to counties and communities to help businesses. Again, grant dollars and not loan dollars. So the county commission asked if Cloud Corp would apply for those dollars, and we did. We were granted right around $132,000 in funds for county businesses. So we started working through the application process with North Central Regional Planning, and we submitted a few grant applications to them. One of them happened to be a business here in Concordia that was denied. The reason that they were denied is because the city of Concordia has their revolving loan fund. And because we have a revolving loan fund, it makes businesses in Concordia not eligible for the grant fund. And this was something that was not in the criteria when we applied. It was something that was not apparent until we had a business apply here. So our businesses here in Concordia are not eligible for grant dollars. So with the pandemic still unknown, and we don't know how long these phases and everything else is going to stay in effect, and we are going to have businesses that are still going to be in need of help, and that is evident with some applications from Concordia businesses that I had through the grant dollars. Amy and Amber and Stacy and Justin and myself had a nice extensive conversation about how we can fully help our businesses here in Concordia. And so what I would like to ask tonight is the round 1 of funding that we did to the 9 businesses to forgive those loans in the form of a grant to those businesses and open up a second round of funding through the Concordia revolving loan fund for Concordia businesses. This grant funding would be up to $15,000 per grant, and I say up to, as with the first round of funding, the way that we were able to get those dollars out so quickly was, if you recall, we maybe granted $25,000 in a loan. We gave the business $12,500 $2,500 up front. And then once they submitted the invoices and receipts of payment for applicable expenses up to that $12,500, they could request the second half. Well, I would like to take this round two funding of dollars and do what we're doing with the CB1 dollars, because it's a lot less work on everybody's part. And that is where the business would fill out an application. We would make sure that they meet the criteria, which is the 51% below the moderate income level, because they still have to meet that. If they meet that 51% below the moderate income level and they've justified their expenses, it would be reimbursable expenses. So once the finance committee would review that, and I would come to you and say, this is the grant that we have available, we would like you to approve this grant for $15,000. That business would then produce invoices, receipts, and payment that they have already spent that $15,000. So it would be reimbursable expenses and not an upfront grant.
So how much do we have left in the revolving loan account? We've done 200,000, correct?
A little over 300,000 left in there.
Okay, and we can go down to and leave, what, 10,000 in it?
I think 10,000 was the threshold, that if we had more than that, that's why we couldn't make
Okay.
the businesses in our city eligible for the other funds.
The other part of this is in March when I visited with Debbie back from the Department of Commerce on how exactly, because being new to the revolving loan fund, I wanted to make sure we were following procedures. So I visited with her extensively one day, and she said, you better loan the money or you're going to lose it. So kind of, took that in as, okay, we need to start making some loans, and I felt very comfortable about these. I sat in on our Western Kansas Regional Economic Development Alliance meeting via Zoom here a couple of weeks ago. Secretary Tolan presented to us. There were a lot of questions about the revolving loan fund dollars, a lot of questions about the CD1 dollars. And the one thing he said, for those communities and counties that have revolving loan fund dollars, if you have not made a loan since 2015, or you have not spent $2,500 each time out of your revolving loan fund, we have already given you written notice that we are taking those funds back. He then said there will be a round two. I visited with Debbie back before I brought this idea to Amy. And Debbie said, Kim, there is a round two in the mix. I don't know what the criteria for that round two is going to be, but they are working on taking the community and or county revolving loan funds back. So one of our big discussions was, we would much rather be able to help our local businesses than have to turn the money back over. Again, things are changing every day. I don't know if in the end that they're actually going to come back and take them. I don't know if they'll look at Concordia and say, ooh, look what they did to help their community. They're really trying to disperse these funds. We're going to leave the remainder of their funds available to them for their incentive toolbox. I can't answer that question. And that's probably the hardest.
So if we turn these into a grant, the ones that we've done is $200,000 so far, then that's considered using the revolving loan funds.
Yep. Yeah, would be. So is there any anticipation that would be refilled at some point through these other grant dollars? Are we out that money?
Yes, we would be out those dollars now.
From out the dollars from a revolving loan fund,
Yes.
or out the grant dollars?
Out the revolving loan fund dollars. So we would have this would leave us $333,764.57
Mhm.
in the revolving loan fund. And I have 3 applications for Concordia businesses on my desk. So if we did a total of 5, and we've had this grant open for a while, and I have 3 applications. If we left it open a little while longer, and let's say we did a total of 5, we would still have $200,000+ left in that revolving loan fund then that we could sit on and utilize as a revolving loan fund.
Unless the state.
As long as the state doesn't take it back.
Takes it back.
So,
Because that's its original
we need,
source, right?
yes, so we need to get the money to our businesses as much as we can, to avoid giving that back. Leave it in Concordia.
And we haven't issued a loan out of the revolving loan fund for its original purpose since 2015.
And we do, I had a very long conversation with Debbie Peters yesterday from North Central Regional Planning, and I visited with her about what I was coming to you all with tonight. She thought it was a great idea, because she even said, you know, they've been talking about taking it back for a while, but since they've already taken back one round, they're looking to do the same in round two, right? But we also know for two different projects that are happening in Concordia, and neither one of these projects fit the criteria for the revolving loan fund. She is really trying hard with the banks and entrepreneurs that are coming to her to try every which way under the sun to get them to qualify for revolving loan fund dollars. And they're not. So it's hard with the projects we have going on right now to have these businesses qualify and be able to get these loans.
I think where I feel conflicted about this, but not at all about us doing this within Concordia, because if it's there and it's going to go away, I would much rather see it go to support the businesses that I think make Concordia what it is. And I'm thankful that our businesses, by and large, have been able to survive through that. But it doesn't necessarily like the rules became, so to speak, and that they've changed. But that's not a here criticism, that's not their criticism. And so I guess within the scope that we're trying to work with, I would absolutely, I'd much rather see it go to support the businesses that contribute to not only our tax rolls, but our community as a whole. You have a lot of those folks that are very active in the community. Just would be an interesting conversation to have at a different level that isn't really, I guess, here in this meeting.
So a reason for lowering it to 15,000.
Well, and I visited, bounced this off of Debbie Peters yesterday also. When Amy and Amber and I talked, we had just talked about that 15,000 as a round two, kind of also seeing what the interest is going to be out there for businesses who potentially qualify. And making sure then we have enough dollars in our revolving loan fund to be able to help if every business
Round
that qualifies
three, round
applies,
four, round
right?
five. I mean, we don't know how long it's going to go either. We
Yeah.
want to still be able to have some.
Right. So when I visited with Debbie Peters yesterday, she said you could also state it so that it says it's up to $25,000. But she said, I think you have a really good idea, Ken, with having it be reimbursable expenses instead of giving the money like you did the first time and then giving us the invoices on the back end. We're asking for the invoices before we disperse the dollars to make sure that the money has been spent and is helping during the COVID crisis. So she said you could you could say the grant's up to $25,000, and if a business comes in and they only have $7,000 worth of qualified expenses, it's a $7,000 grant. Working with these CB1 dollars, I have one business that I'm working with that has about $8,000. She could qualify for up to 25 for the full 25,000, but because the way the CB1 dollars are given out, you have to show those expenses, and she has $8,000 worth of reimbursable expenses. So if she qualifies, she'll get the $8,000. I have another business in the county that literally their application was 164 pages long because that's how many reimbursable expenses they have. They actually have over the cap of the $30,000 worth of reimbursable expenses. So you could you could set it and say, we'll give up to $25,000, and they have to show those expenses prior to granting the dollars. Or you could leave it at 15.
So this $81, that cap is 25.
That cap gives businesses 1 to 5 full-time employees is up to 25,000 with a $30,000 cap, and if you have 6 to 50 employees, it's up to $50,000.
So if, so that's, so the first round, the maximum was 25,000. And someone applied for 15,000. And if we go ahead and put this in the form of a grant, so the 15,000 goes away, they can't come back and say, oh, I'll take that extra 10. I need that extra 10, or do they go to round 2?
So the way that community development block grant funds are written, once you receive CDBG dollars, you cannot receive another kind of CDBG dollars. So if we had, let's say we had a business that applied for a $12,000 loan at the beginning, right? And now they say, oh, well, now you're going to grant that loan, great. But now I can get up to 25,000. I want to be able, they would be able to apply for the grant portion. And they would have to show reimbursable expenses that were not already shown in the previous one, which I think would be difficult for some of our smaller businesses.
So they could apply for that first portion that I received. I've got it, but since then I've had these dollars and then apply for this one. Okay.
Because they already received CDB, because the Concordia Revolving Loan Fund, the loan
Period.
CDBG period. You can only get it granted one time.
Okay. Any further questions, concerns?
So the recommendation is really to look at it as a 15 cap. Do you feel there is a benefit of up to 25? Does that really accomplish? I mean, I'm looking on the list, and as you said, we've had this period of time where there's been the applications, and we have 3. So I'm not really thinking that there's going to be that need. But
And I don't think we'll have many more businesses that meet that LMI threshold to be able to apply.
Okay.
So, do I think that to say we would loan, or we would grant out up to 25,000? This is where I conflict. Part of me says yes, because that was what we offered the loan for, was up to 25. But the other part of me says, 15,000 is a really great grant. The loans that we gave were very proactive business owners. You all were very proactive in doing what you did. You took the risk, you took the loan. So I'm torn.
yeah,
With the idea they had to pay it back.
With the idea that they had to pay it back.
Yeah, now I say, wait a minute. EasyG's got $25,000 and you guys forgave that. Now I need $25,000. You tell me I can only have 15. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
well, I think that's where, hypothetically speaking, okay, so could a business still apply for the revolving loan fund separate from all of this?
And it would be a loan.
Right. So then they would still have the opportunity to apply for the loan the same as these other businesses applied for the loan, right? The fact that this is being turned into a grant is after the fact. So when I entered into this deal, I entered into it as a loan. I still have the opportunity to enter into a loan operation that is separate from this. So that same initial opportunity remains. the back end of it is a little different. And there's still a $15,000 grant. Now it is accessible. So I think that's I understand what you're saying, but that to me seems.
So you can say grants up to 15,000, loans up to the maximum of.
Well, with this motion, what we're asking you to do is in part forgive the loans that are already out there,
Right.
and then going forward, just do a grant process. So that it matches what the CD1 dollars are doing for the businesses outside of Concordia, but within Cobb County. So then if you take that thinking one step further, if the CD1 dollars are allowed 25,000 and round one was allowed 25,000, should you consider 25,000 for this? And that's another perspective.
What's that?
It's a lot to consider, and I honestly don't know if there's one right answer, and that's what Amy and I and Amber and Stacy have kind of all played around with. You know, since the CD1 dollars came out, since we were awarded those dollars and we sent out the applications, Commerce has come down with 15, as of Friday, 15 guideline and criteria changes to the CD1 dollars. So it's ever changing, and it is just a pendulum of trying to figure out what the right move is.
So we had 9 in round one, and if we do 25,000, there's a possibility for say 12 more change. But if it's 25,000, what do you think the likelihood of 12 more businesses with the LMI qualifying for? I guess, excuse me, but I guess where I'm going is that if there's a few, I'd rather they be able to get as much as they can. Because I hate to say, okay, everybody, it's $15,000. You get about 3 or 4 people that get $15,000, and then we're still sitting there with money that could be in jeopardy and taken away from us. So, I'm teetering back and forth here, and I'm really thinking maybe we should.
So the other thing to take into consideration is we would only go back to March 1. Reimbursable expenses since March 1 with the Concordia revolving loan fund, we did do March 19th. The CB1 is doing March 1. I would rather keep that March 19th congruent with our revolving loan fund dollars. So it'd be March 1, and it's reimbursable expenses. If they received PPP, they cannot, the time frame that their PPP dollars were utilized, they cannot submit invoices or payroll expenses. They can't utilize the money for the same thing twice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If they received SBA idle dollars, it's the same way. If they use idle dollars for April's inventory, they can't submit April inventory to be reimbursed for this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if they received other help, that kind of knocks out what they can utilize these grant dollars for. So they would be able to technically maybe all of June and July. So I'm working with one business right now. Like I said, with like the $8,000. Part of it is it's a big undertaking for them to go back through their receipts and their canceled checks and their ACH, withdrawals, because they have to show all that. And so this particular business is really just going for utilities, building insurance, and inventory. And the way the inventory with the CB1 dollars works is you can't go back any further than 60 days worth of inventory.
So the likelihood of somebody, if we set it up to 25,000, likelihood of people really being able to justify something.
Could be somewhat difficult.
Yeah.
Would depend on how long you leave the grant process open, because, if this goes on for another.
And we could set a deadline for this, and when that deadline approaches, we can revisit it. And we can look and say, okay, this is how many we did with a total amount of X. And you always say, okay, that's great. Or you could say, you know what, do you have anybody else that has come to you since the deadline has passed do we need to extend the deadline?
What kind of deadline did we have back in March when we started this?
It's still open.
It's still open.
Yeah.
I think it'd be realistic, we could say, up to $25,000, through, have maybe a 6-month period of time, and then reevaluate at that time. Maybe, I'm just throwing that out.
Or by the end of the year, I mean, the
Yeah.
calendar year, I mean, whatever makes sense.
Yeah.
I like the idea of 25,000 limit
Say
or
up to
cap.
$25,000, that would be revisited, January 1st.
Do you want to wait till January 1st to revisit, or do you want to revisit in on October 1st? And that way if we're getting quite a few applications and
So
we can see the need out there.
I think revisiting it mid-fall is going to be pretty ideal. I think that we have a very significant date coming up in which we're going to have a giant social experiment, medical experiment. And so I would bet that by mid-October, we're going to find out that everything's shutting down again, and we're going to have to keep this thing active and involved. Or, you know what, I think we're going to get all right and be through this. But I don't know that we need to wait till January 1 to revisit. I think we're going to have a pretty decent idea by October 1st, November 1st. Some other school, I forget what it was, but first day of school, second grader, shut down the school. So,
Well, if we do November 1st, that's about 3 months, so maybe that's realistic.
And I know still, the finance committee will still review, and will still take all of the same procedures. The finance committee will review the application, and then we'll make time at a commission meeting to come and present for approval.
What about the two businesses that didn't apply for the full $25,000? Will they be eligible to get the rest of it if we turn it into a grant?
And this is all about CV1. And I know there's, other than mention of it, we really don't have any idea what CV2 would be, but I guess anything is possible, but that may be a stipulation too, that may be a fresh start and that might be qualified for this, but now that this is a second round,
Right.
$1 million, but there's nothing to bank on that.
Correct.
So I don't think anybody's banking on anything. I'd like to keep as much money as we can in Concordia and the county as a whole.
Did I understand correctly, you want to look at a November 1st deadline to put out there now and then revisit it at following commission meeting, which would be November 4th or November 18th? Would that make sense to me?
To before. I think that deadline might help encourage those that are going to do it. So maybe I didn't think I needed to, but now that things are really hitting, we get into it.
So the motion should be up to 25 and have the deadline of November 1st, at which time it will be revisited as appropriate for language. Thanks.
I would move to approve the grant the CRL funds in round 1 to the 9 applicants and to continue the grant funding in round 2, have each grant at $25,000 with a deadline of November 4th. 1st.
Do we want up to 25 or?
Up to 25.
Okay.
Because they have to prove in the grant that
Yeah.
they've spent the money.
Yeah. I have a motion from Marcia. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Christie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Friends that are
Thank
happy
you.
with that.
Thank you.
Wonderful speaking.
All righty. Minutes for minutes for the July 15th meeting and the July 20th meeting.
Great. So do the special meeting, regular meeting.
minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the July 15th, 2020 special meeting, the minutes of July 15th, 2020 meeting, and the minutes of July 20th, 2020 meeting.
I have a motion from Chuck,
Second.
second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Appropriation ordinance number 14.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 14.
A motion from Marcia. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Christie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. MOU for acceptance of coronavirus relief funds.
We've talked about this a few times before. This is the county funding that the county received from the state, from the CARES Committee, Spark Task Force, and now it's called Coronavirus Relief Funds or CRF funds. It was about $1.74 million. The city's allocation is $293,065.74. And the information that has been presented in your memo has been updated as of yesterday. Kim alluded to the changes that keep coming down. The same thing happens with the subcommittee. Some of the rules and regs keep changing, so we have to keep moving some stuff around. The subcommittee's done a really good job of trying to keep us informed and make sure that we're spending money appropriately. So now we have, as of yesterday, we have submitted reimbursement item requests for items purchased of $9,252.24, payroll reimbursement for $37,217.75. And then our future purchases of direct aid plan amount is at $246,595.75. And so on August 15th, the committee will upload their report to the state. The state will have about a month to approve it. And then sometime after September 15th, we'll know if our submittal is approved. At that point in time, we should get a check back on the reimbursement items. And we should also get funding and approval to proceed with some of the direct purchasing items. So that's kind of the plan. As far as this MOU goes, the county commission had asked that any entity that intends to accept those funds go ahead and pass an MOU to say that we will spend the funds appropriately and per the guidelines that have been issued from the state. And we do intend to do so. We've got several eyes on that document, so we hope that they're expended appropriately. And so tonight we'll ask that you approve that MOU. Once you approve it and sign it, we'll send it to the county commission Monday to have them sign it, and we'll get a copy back for our records. So.
Okay. Any questions?
We're maximizing our opportunities with this.
We are. I emailed you yesterday kind of what our final submittal looks like. The purpose of these dollars is to reimburse for items that we have expended to help mitigate and to respond to the coronavirus threat. And then the future direct aid purchases are all for mitigation efforts. So, for example, one big purchase that we have listed is replacement furniture in this room. I know it sounds silly, but we need stuff that's not soft fabric so that we can wipe it down and disinfect it after use. We need tables that may be on casters that we can move around in a more flexible arrangement so that we can get an adequate setup for commission meetings, an adequate setup for municipal court advisory board meetings. Again, with something that's a little more lightweight that can be put together in different fashions to meet all of those needs, multifunctional use, that kind of thing. We talked about a digiticket system for the police department. Right now, they're transferring a lot of paper back and forth. Anytime you transfer paper, you have the potential to transfer germs. So the same way of looking for some software that would allow online registrations for recreation activities, as well as an online building permit application process. Couple pieces of equipment for the ambulances that will not only monitor your normal heart rate and stuff, but would also monitor your oxygen levels, for example, because that's respiratory illness is the symptom of the COVID stuff. So those kind of things, those are all big ticket items in the $25,000 to $30,000 range. So we really feel like we are maximizing those things. Those are things that probably would have been 5-10 years down the road for us if we had to use our normal equipment reserve fund.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the MOU?
I move to approve the MOU between the City of Concordia and Cloud County to accept coronavirus relief funds and to authorize the mayor to sign the MOU.
I have a motion from Christie.
Second.
Second from Chuck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Ordinance 2020-3164 zoning change for Kids Properties LLC.
Mayor and Commissioner, this ordinance for you is rezoning for the lands that was recently annexed into the city by David Rose, representing for Kids Property LLC, has to come in as a restricted zoning, which is R1. So he went through the zoning change process. C3 will allow everything plus other things that is being done out there now, except for the industrial storage of gravel, but that's considered illegal non-conforming use at this time. That's supposed to be over with, say, September, October. The gravel storage, the state's using it to store gravel and materials for rebuilding. So I really work out that way. So. But other than that, all looks good. 13.5 acres total. Truck stop being redone, fueling, and small cafe at this point. I've got to be able to have some shower, be able to shower, and improve his kitchen. Yeah. And some cosmetic improvements. Getting hooked up to city utilities.
I'd move to approve ordinance 2020-3164.
Second.
That motion from Chuck, second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Bruno. Chief?
Mayor, commissioners, I think the time has come to get some sort of a decent HVAC system out at the animal control shelter. We've been battling window air conditioners for the last couple of years. Jody and I have had to literally take them apart and clean the fins and stuff to get a little bit more use out of them. Jody had mentioned to me at the start of the summer that the window air unit in the office was not functioning properly. Was blowing out cool air but not cold air. And then a couple weeks ago, Amy and I received an email from a frustrated volunteer at the shelter that the window air conditioner in the cat room had froze up. So then we were down to the window air in the office. And it was a 100-degree day. So we discussed things, and I remembered I had a couple of air conditioning units at my house that were in storage. So I dug those out, hauled them out there, and that's what we're currently using to keep it cooled down. Jody also mentioned that Hood's heating and air that does maintenance stuff on our heating unit out there said that it was about on its last leg. Might last one more year. So we proceeded to get a couple of quotes, one from Calabrese, an amount of $7,651.98 for the 60,000 BTU train unit. And then we got a quote for Hood Heating and Air for $7,178 for the 90,000 BTU unit. Bigger unit, cheaper. Is down the road, we're probably going to look at maybe adding another room out the shelter for quarantine purposes. Just isn't enough room to keep animals separate. So I just recommend you approve the purchase of the carrier, 90,000 unit, for $7,178. It'd be paid for out of the animal shelter donation.
It was well thought out. One of my questions that I had down was, are there any possibilities for future expansion where this unit will handle that? And so it sounds like you thought through it very well. So I think it's personally, I'm a proponent of taking care of our lost little friends and abandoned little friends. And I think we do a great job with that. We need to have a comfortable place for them to be.
And for the people that work out there too.
Yeah.
Don't volunteer. Couple of good volunteers.
Yeah.
I would imagine that a room with cats when it's 100 degrees out would not be able to function here. Not real pleasant.
Okay. Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the purchase of the HVAC system as presented from the Heating and Air for $7,178.
A motion from Marcia,
Second.
second from Christie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
Health insurance renewal.
As shown by the memo, I told you that I had received the list of the folks we have that would be affected the most if we changed to this different plan called Results RX. I would say, I think I forgot to say it in the memo there, to remind you, everyone that does have prescriptions could possibly be affected in the fact that they can now just get a 30-day supply for the copay rather than a 100-day supply. So that would, and I don't know how many people do it that way, 389 prescriptions are unaffected as far as they can stay with what they're getting currently. I don't know how many people that affects, but that's 389 prescriptions. And then, and I don't know about these 5, if that's more than, some of them have more than one. But Alicia went through all these with me. One of them treats acne, this benzoyl peroxide, and one other thing I can't pronounce. And the 2 drugs separately can be prescribed for the regular price, but they combined them into a treatment and made it more expensive. So that one can still be, they can still get that one. There's another one, and I can't pronounce it either. It's a muscle relaxant. The most expensive one is Orencia, that treats psoriatic arthritis. And there is a toothpaste with a 1.1% sodium fluoride, so a really high fluoride content. And they just probably wouldn't be able to get that. I don't even know if anybody makes something like that. And then there's another one that's an oral birth control. So all of these have a different brand that they can take. I don't know about, they don't have to be generic. They just can't be these unless they want to pay a higher amount. So I had figured it was probably 3 to 5 people. That's usually what that comes out to be. But that would make us go down 0.5% off of what we pay this year versus going up 3.6%. So that total comes out to around 30,000.
To get the 60 or 90-day supply, do you have to do the mail order thing on this new? Or can it be local?
You don't have to do the mail order. I mean, you can't get a 100-day supply for one copay anymore. So I don't do anything, so I'm really not familiar with all of that.
I mean, they could have essentially triple the copay. But but in the big picture, if it helps us be able to maintain our health insurance, I mean, I think that's
Keeps us from thinking, at least for another year, of passing anything along to the employee.
Right.
I'd like to avoid that as much as possible because, especially on the family plan, they already pay $530 or $40, something like that. So every little bit
but
helps.
it's still a pretty decent price.
Yeah.
To take for family
And
coverage.
I still hear that we have some of the best coverage compared to others in town. So I think we're still really fortunate. I don't know that always everybody thinks that, but if they did have to go do anything on their own, it would be a rude awakening what these plans cost.
Yeah, but I think those legacy plans where you pay $15 a month, your whole family's covered.
Yeah.
And they're just-
She did say on the Orencia that you can talk to
I think it's the pharmacist, and they may have a possibility of a way to get it cheaper if the person wanted to stick with that. You know, Humira is also that coverage. It's very expensive, but that one is covered at the usual copay. So it's possible they would be, you know, I don't know if they do exactly the same thing, but she did say on all of these, there is, except maybe for the toothpaste, there is another alternative. So it doesn't leave people
So what
high and
is
dry.
your copay? What is your
The lowest step is $15. And that's where we added, this would add two more. I don't have it in front of me, but it's like 15, 30, 45. Then it goes like 75 and 150. So I'm assuming that means if you wanted to stick with any of these, you could do that for the 150 for those higher deductibles or copays. So it's not a matter of saying you can't have that, but it's all confusing to me. That's why I'm glad we have somebody that helps administer the benefits. But she really highly recommended it. She said this was a good way to go to save. I mean, it's not substantial over our 300 and some thousand a year, but again, it's going the other way, which is very rare.
In my mind, it takes us off the radar of the high cost. So if we can get lost in the mix of everyone else having moderate use, to me, there's a value in that. Oh, well, hey, what's going on with Concordia? That outlier
Yeah, you
is
don't.
going to draw attention.
So no action is required for us.
No, I mean, I think Amber might want to hear if you have a preference, but she just makes sure it's a budget that she has published. So,
I think it's the right move
I
to
think it
make.
makes sense.
Thank you. And quarterly financial report.
The general fund, most things are looking good. Sales tax was our main concern last quarter, and it has stayed just fine. 51.5% of budget at this point in time, so that's ahead of how we were last year, little bit, so basically we're comparable. As far as property taxes, those are a little bit down, but nothing that's, I would guess that it was probably related to COVID, but it's not anything that's going to cause us any big problems, and hopefully we'll be getting that in delinquent taxes in next, coming up maybe this year or next year. Franchise fees are pretty much on target. They're a little bit lower. Timing of collections had a lot to do with that. The Cunningham one especially, we just get that twice a year, and we got it 3 times last year because we received it right at the end of the year. So we actually haven't even gotten one of those for this year. That's kind of why that's down, but otherwise it would be pretty comparable. Ambulance revenues are down. But again, some of that's due to timing, and then some of it was due to less runs during the period of shutdown. But in total, for the general fund, pretty much on target, nothing to be worried about for revenues. And as far as expenses, same thing, on target, 42.2% of our budgeted expenditures for the year to date, and last year we were at 43.8%. So just a little bit less than last year this time, which is positive. Questions on the general fund stuff? And then the other funds, you can look through those, but the only one I highlighted was that special highway fund. As far as in the report, it's on track, but the distribution that we got in July was $5,600 less than the same one in 2019. So that went down as we kind of expected it would, but it's not a major
we don't have anything planned out of that fund at the moment, so again, it's not going to affect us that bad. And everything else was pretty much on target for those funds as well. Any questions on any of those or anything? We're looking good for
Yeah.
the circumstances.
It kind of makes me wonder what our sales tax would have been had, I think, I mean, if we're staying positive with what we dealt with in the spring, I guess we're still dealing with it to an extent. Interesting to know where we would have been.
Well, we know we had some businesses that are gone. There's no collections there, so it's really, I think we're very fortunate. You know, and talking with Toby the other day, it's like we're fortunate in that what they were projecting at the onset of this, we didn't come close to that. And there's some places really got smacked, but we're very fortunate.
I think we're fortunate that people are shopping.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Any comments or questions? Thank you. Managers report.
Don't have a lot to share. Was out last week on vacation, and prior to that and returning from that, most of the work was focused on that SPARK funding request reimbursement that we shared earlier tonight. So I know staff has a few comments for you, so I'll let you share.
Okay. Thank you. Staff reports.
I just want to mention real quick, I don't know if you noticed, but the graffiti building came down along 6th Street. And it was clear today they're gonna be filling it in. Did they get filled in? Now you move out to 2118 Republican, making Rainey's house across the.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, it'll be 920 Cedar for the school district. North of the junior high across 10th Street on the corner, Cedar and 10th. They purchased that and they intend to turn it into a parking lot.
Okay.
For a better ADA access on that upper level. If we ever have an event in the gym again, I don't know. That's how it's doing, but.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Just thought I'd update you on some of the.
Appreciate it, Randall.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other staff reports? Okay. Marcia?
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Ron and new sheriff. And I don't know whether you've noticed, but at the Brown Grand, they are working on the arch. I mean, I think there was a picture posted that the scaffolding and he's got a lift and he's clear in the top of that building, which I would do. They're replacing all the light bulbs with LED bulbs and doing one of the sockets that wasn't working right. And still, when Royce gets done with all of that, and they'll paint the ceiling, there was some water damage, and then when he gets done with that, they'll redo the floor before the new seats come. And they're scheduled for like September sometime, so. And hopefully they'll be able to have something in the burn after that. And otherwise, things seem to be going well.
Yep. Chuck?
Just to echo Marcia's compliments, Ron. Also, I feel really fortunate to be a part of this group and to have staff that work so hard. I think it's really great when a governmental body works to be a good steward of taxpayer money. And I think the efforts that we go through to try to be the most efficient we can with the dollars we receive. We really work hard to reduce any mill levy increases. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but I really feel like we've done, you all have done a wonderful job of maximizing those dollars. And So I appreciate that as a taxpayer also. I don't mind paying taxes as long as I know that they're going and being spent well. The way that's happening. So thank you all.
I agree with Chuck, and I appreciate him saying that. There's a lot goes on. Taxpayers sometimes think we spend money willy or willy-nilly. And there's a lot goes on behind the scenes, and trying to justify things and asking questions and all the processes that we go through. So I really appreciate that. I did have somebody send me a message the other night complaining about the mosquitoes in town. And I told him that bourbon attracts mosquitoes, and he sent back a thing. Oh.
I didn't think you were going to talk about our conversation.
But no, the mosquitoes this year, I mean, in town and out of town, they're just horrendous.
Lots of water.
What's that? Lots of water, yeah. That's it.
We're running that truck as often as we have before.
Yes.
I run about every night.
See, I heard them last night.
I hear it most nights. I hear that truck going most nights.
There seems to be a high levelization on the
These
park.
guys are
People
bikes
just
and
circle that area.
It really was bad there.
Yeah, who got on their bikes and rode behind those things?
The Folger, back in the day, and the Fogger.
It probably explains a lot. Yeah, it explains a lot.
That explains a lot, maybe.
We were out playing golf Sunday, and I thought even when you're driving the car, you don't see us coming at you. It's like they're just going for broke. They don't. I mean, we were moving, and
It was always coming out of the
I'm
grass.
hungry.
Yeah,
And they're big.
they are. And you, Christie?
I guess I would also add my congratulations to Ron with the rest of the group. Beyond that, I don't have much else to say.
anytime you get elected, you get a T-shirt with a target on the back. So
I already complained to him about county roads.
so begins.
Baptism by fire. So, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion from Chuck,
Second.